Christine, written by Stephen King. Read by Nate's Narrations. Part 1. Dennis, Teenage Love Songs. Chapter 1. First Views. "Oh my God!" my friend Arnie Cunningham cried out suddenly. What is it?" I asked. His eyes were bulging from behind his steel-rimmed glasses. He had plastered one hand over his face so that his palm was partially cupping his mouth, and his neck could have been on ball bearings the way it was craning back over his shoulder. "Stop the car, Dennis! Go back! What are you... Go back! I want to look at her again!" Suddenly, I understood. "Oh, man, forget it," I said. "If you mean that thing we just passed, Go back!" He was almost screaming. I went back, thinking that this was maybe one of Arnie's subtle jokes, but it wasn't. He was gone lock, stock, and barrel. Arnie had fallen in love. She was a bad joke, and what Arnie saw in her that day I'll never know. The left side of her windshield was a snarled spiderweb of cracks. The right rear deck was bashed in, and an ugly nest of rust had grown in the paint-scraped valley. The back bumper was askew, the trunk lid was ajar, and the upholstery was bleeding out through several long tears in the seat covers, both front and back. It looks like if someone had worked on the upholstery with a knife. One tire was flat, the others were bald enough to show the canvas corroding. Worst of all, there was a dark puddle of oil under the engine block. Arnie had fallen in love with a 1958 Plymouth Fury, one of the long ones with the big fins. There was an old sun-faded "for sale" sign propped on one right side of the windshield, the side that was not cracked. "Look at her lines, Dennis," Arnie whispered, running around the car like a man possessed. His sweaty hair flew and flopped. He tied the back door on the passenger side, and it came open with a scream. Arnie, you're having me on, aren't you?" I said. "It's sunstroke, right? Tell me it's sunstroke. I'll take you home and put you under the freaking air conditioner and we'll forget all about this, okay?" But I said it without much hope. He knew how to joke, but there was no joke on his face then. Instead, it was the kind of goofy madness I didn't like much. He didn't even bother to reply. A hot, stuffy blow of air, redolent of aged oil and advanced decomposition, puffed out of the open door. Arnie didn't seem to notice that either. He got in and sat down and on the ripped and faded seat. Once, 20 years before, it had been red. Now it was a faded wash pink. I reached in and pulled up a little puff of upholstery and looked at it and blew it away. "Looks like the Russian army marched over it on their way to Berlin," I said. He finally noticed I was still there. Yeah, but she could be fixed up. She could. She could be tough, a moving unit, Dennis, a beauty, a real here. What are you two kids up to?" It was an old guy who looked as if he enjoying, more or less, his 70th summer, probably less. This particular dude struck me as the sort of man who enjoyed very little. His hair was long and scraggy, what little of it left there was. He had a good case of porosis going on the bald part of his skull. He was wearing green old man's pants and low-topped kids, no shirt. Instead, there was something clenched around his waist that looked like a lady's corset. When he got closer, I saw it was a back brace. From the looks of it, I would say, just offhand, that he had changed it last somewhere around the time Lyndon Johnson had died. "What are you two kids up to?" His voice was shrill and strident. "Sir, is this your car?" Arnie asked him. Not much of a question that was. The Plymouth was parked in the lawn, post-war tract house from which the old man had issued. The lawn was horrible. It looked positively great with that Plymouth in the foreground for perspective. "What if it is?" the old guy demanded. Arnie had to swallow. "I want to buy it." The old dude's eyes gleamed, the angry look on his face replaced by a furtive gleam in the eye with a certain hungry sneer around the lips. Then a large, repellent, shit-eating grin appeared. That was the moment, I think. Then, just at that moment, I felt something cold and blue inside me. There was a moment just then when I felt like slugging Arnie and dragging him away. Something came into the old man's eyes. Not just the gleam. There was something behind the gleam. Well, you should have said so, the old guy told Arnie. Stuck out his hand and Arnie took it. LeBay's the name. Ronald D. LeBay, U.S. Army, retired. Arnie Cunningham. The old spurt pumped his hand, sort of waved at me. I was out of the play. He had his sucker. Arnie might as well have handed LeBay his wallet. How much? Arnie asked, and then he plunged ahead. Whatever you want for her, it's not enough. I groaned inside instead of sighing. His checkbook had just joined his wallet. For a moment, LeBay's grin faltered a little, and his eyes narrowed down suspiciously. I think he was elevating the possibility that he was being put on. He studied Arnie's open, longing face for signs of guile, and then asked murderously perfect question. Son, you ever owned a car before? He owns a Mustang Mach 2, I said quickly. His folks bought it for him. It's got Hurst shifter, supercharger, and it can boil the road in first gear. No, Arnie said quietly. I just got my driver's license this spring. LeBay tipped me a brief but crafty gaze and then swung his full attention back to his prime target. He put both hands in the small of his back and stretched. I caught a sour whiff of sweat. Got a back problem in the Army, he said. Full disability. Doctors never put it right. Anyone ever ask you what's wrong with this world? You boys tell them it's three things. Doctors, commies, and nigger radicals. Of the three, commies are the worst, closely followed by doctors. And if they want to know who told you, you told them Ronald D. LeBay. Yes, sir. He touched the old, scruffed hood of the Plymouth with a kind of bemused love. This here's the best car I ever owned. Bought her in September of 1957. Back then, that's when you got the model year, your new model year, in September. All summer they'd show you pictures of cars under hoods and cars under tarps until they were fair dying to know what they looked like underneath. Not like now. His voice dripped with contempt for the debased times he had lived to see. Brand new she was. Had the smell of a brand new car. That's about the finest smell in the world. He considered. Except maybe for pussy. I looked at Arnie, nibbling the insides of my cheek madly to keep from braying laughter all over everything. Arnie looked back at me, astounded. The old man appeared to notice neither of us. He was off on his own planet. I was in Keiki for 34 years, LeBay told us, still touching the hood of the car. Went in at 16 in 1923. I E.T. dust in Texas, seen crabs as big as lobsters and some of them Nongos Hordens. I saw men with their guts coming out their ears during Big Two. In France, I saw that their guts was coming out of their ears. You believe that, son? Yes, sir, Arnie said. I don't think he heard a word of what LeBay said. He was shifting from foot to foot as if he had to go to the bathroom. Bad. About the car, though. You go to university? LeBay barked suddenly. Up there in Hairlocks? No, sir. I go to Libertyville High. Good, LeBay said grimly. Steer clear of colleges. They're full of nigger lovers that want us to give away the Panama Canal. Think tanks, they call them. Asshole tanks, say I. He gazed fondly at the car sitting on its flat tire, its paint job mewling rustily in the late afternoon sunlight. I hurt my back in the spring of 57, he said. Arm was going to rack and ruin even then. I got out just in time. Came back to old Libertyville, looked over and rolling iron, took my time, then I walked into Norman Gibbs' Plymouth dealership, where the bowling alley is now out on Main Street, ordered this here car. I said you get it in red and white, next year's model. Red as a fire engine on the inside, and they did it. When I got her, she had a total of 60 miles on the odometer. Yes, sir. He spat. I glanced over at Arnie's shoulder over the odometer. Glass was cloudy, but I could read the damage all the same. 97,432 and 6/10. Jesus wept. If you love this car so much, why are you selling it? I asked. He turned a milky, rather frightening gaze on me. Are you cracking wise on me, son? I didn't answer. I didn't drop my gaze either. After a few moments of eye-to-eye dueling, which Arnie totally ignored, he was running a slow and loving hand over the car's back fins. He said, Can't drive anymore. Back's gotten too bad. Eyes are going the same way. Suddenly I got it. Or I thought I did. If he had given us the correct dates, he was 71, and at 70 the state makes you start taking compulsory eye exams every year before they'll renew your driver's license. LeBay had either failed his eye exam or was afraid of failing. Either way, came to the same thing. Rather than submit to that indignity, he had put the Plymouth up, and after that, the car got old fast. How much do you want for it? Arnie asked again. Oh, he just couldn't wait to be slaughtered. LeVay turned his face up to the sky, appearing to consider it for rain. Then he looked down at Arnie, and again he gave him a large, kindly smile that was far too much like a previous shit-eating grin for me. I've been asking 300, he said, but you seem like a likely enough lad. I'll make it 250 for you. Oh my Christ, I said. But he knew who his sucker was, and he knew exactly how to drive a wedge between us. In the words of my grandfather, he hadn't fallen off a hay truck yesterday. Okay, he said briskly, if that's how you want it. I got my 4:30 story to watch, Edge of Night. Never miss it if I can help it. Nice chiming with you boys. So long. Arnie threw me such a smoking look of pain and anger, I backed off a step. He went in after the old man and took his elbow. They talked. I couldn't hear it at all, but I could see more than enough. The old man's pride was wounded. Arnie was earnest and apologetic. The old man hoped Arnie understood he couldn't stand to see the car that had brought him through life, save to his golden years, insulted. And Arnie agreed. Little by little, the old man allowed himself to be let back. And again, I felt something considerably dreadful about him. It was if a cold November wind, I could think. I couldn't put it any better than that. If he says one more word, I'll wash my hands of the whole thing, LeBay said, corked a horny, callous thumb at me. He won't, Arnie said hesitantly. 300, did you say? Yes, I believe that it was 250 was the quoted price, I said loudly. Arnie looked stricken, afraid the old man would walk away again. But LeBay was taking no chances. The fish was almost out of the pond now. 250 would do it, I guess, LeBay allowed. He glanced my way again and saw that he had an understanding. He didn't like me, and I didn't like him. To my ever-increasing horror, Arnie pulled out his wallet and began thumbing through it. He was slicing them. There was silence among the three of us. LeBay looked on. I looked away at a little kid who was trying to kill himself on a puke green skateboard. Somewhere, a dog barked. Two girls who looked like 8th or 9th graders went past, giggling and holding clutches of library books on their blooming chests. I had only one hope left for getting Arnie out of this. It was the day before payday. Given time, even 24 hours, this wild fever might pass. Arnie was beginning to remind me of Toad Hall. When I looked back, Arnie and LeBay were looking at 2 5.61s that had been all in his wallet, apparently. How about a check? Arnie asked. LeBay offered Arnie a dry smile and said nothing. It's a good check, Arnie protested. It would be, too. We had been working all summer at Carson Brothers on I-376 extension, the one which natives of the Pittsburgh area family believe will never really be finished. Arnie sometimes declared that PennDOT had begun taking bids on the I-376 work shortly after the Civil War ended. Not that either of us had any right to complain. A lot of kids were either working slave wages that summer or not working at all. We were making good money, even clocking in some overtime. Brad Jeffries, the job foreman, had been frankly dubious about taking on a kid like Arnie. But he had finally allowed that he could use a flagman. The girl had been planning to hire and gotten herself pregnant and run off to get married. So Arnie had started off flagging in June, but had gotten to the harder work little by little, running mostly on guts and determination. It was the first real job he'd ever had, and he didn't want to screw it up. Brad was reasonably impressed, and the summer sun had even helped Arnie's erupting complexion a little. Maybe it was ultraviolet. I'm sure it's a good check, son, LeBay said, but I gotta make a cash deal. You understand? I didn't know if Arnie understood, but I did. It'd be too easy to stop payment on a local check if this rust bucket Plymouth threw a rod or blew a piston on the way home. You can call the bank, Arnie said, starting to sound desperate. Nope, LeBay said, scratching his armpit above the scabrous brace. It's going on 5:30. Bank's long since closed. A deposit, then, Arnie said, and held out the $16. He looked positively wild. It may be that you're having trouble believing a kid who was almost old enough to vote had gotten himself so worked up over an anonymous old clunk in the space of 15 minutes. I was having some trouble believing it myself. Only Ronald D. LeBay seemed to not be having trouble with it. I suppose it was because at his age he had seen everything. It was only later that I came to believe that this odd sureness might come from other sources. Either way, if any milk of human kindness ever run in his veins, it had curdled and turned to sour cream long ago. I'd have to put at least 10% down, LeBay said. The fish was out of the water, and at the moment it'd be netted. If I had 10%, I'd hold her for another 24 hours. Dennis, Arnie said, can you loan me $9 until tomorrow? I had 12 in my own wallet, had no particular place to go. Day after day, spreading sand and digging trenches where cultists have done wonders when it came to getting me ready for football practice, but I had no social life at all. Lately, I hadn't even been assaulting the ramparts of my cheerleader girlfriend's body in the style in which she had become accustomed. I was rich, but lonely. Come on over here and let's see, I said. LeBay's brow darkened, but he could see he was stuck with my input, like it or not. His frizzy white hair blew back and forth in the mild breeze. He kept one hand possessively on the Plymouth's hood. Arnie and I walked back toward where my car, a '75 Duster, was parked at the curb. I put an arm around Arnie's shoulders. For some reason, I remembered the two of us up in his room on a rainy fall day. We were both no more than 6 years old, cartoons flickering on an ancient black and white TV as we colored with old crayons from a dented coffee can. I imagine the image made me feel sad, and I was a little scared. I have my days, when it seems to me 6 is an optimum age. That's why it only lasts about 7.2 seconds in real time. Have you got it, Dennis? I'll get it back to you tomorrow afternoon. Yeah, I've got it, I said. But what in God's name are you doing, Arnie? That old fart's got total disability, for Christ's sake. He doesn't need the money, and you're not a charitable institution. I don't get it. What are you talking about? He's screwing you. He's screwing you for the simple pleasure of it. If he took a car to Darnell's, he couldn't get $50 for parts. It's a piece of shit. No, it isn't. Without the bad complexion, my friend Arnie could have looked completely ordinary. But God gives everyone at least one good feature. I think, and with Arnie, it was his eyes. Behind the glasses that usually obscured them, they were fine and intelligent gray, the color of clouds of an overcast autumn day. They could be almost uncomfortably sharp and probing when something was going on that he was interested in. But now they were all distant and dreaming. It's not a piece of shit at all. That was when I really began to understand it was more than Arnie suddenly deciding that he wanted a car. He had never expressed an interest in owning one before. He was content to ride with me and chip in for gas and to pedal his 3-speed. And it wasn't if he needed the car, and it wasn't as if he needed a car so he could step out. To the best of my knowledge, Arnie had never had a date in his life. It was something different. It was love, or something like it. I said, at least get him to start it for you, Arnie. Get the hood up. There's a puddle of oil underneath. I think the block might be cracked. I really think... Can you loan me the $9? His eyes were fixed on mine. I gave up. I took out my wallet and gave him the $9. Thanks, Dennis. Your funeral, man. He took no notice. He put my 9 with his 16 and went back to where LeBay stood by the car, handed the money over to LeBay, and counted carefully with his thumb. I'll only hold it for 24 hours, you understand, LeBay said. Yes, sir. That'll be fine. I'll just go in the house and write you out a receipt, you said. What'd you say your name was, soldier? Arnie smiled a little. Cunningham. Arnold Cunningham. LeBay grunted and walked across his unhealthy lawn to his back door. The outer door was one of those funky aluminum combination doors with a scrolled letter in the center. A big L in this case. The door slammed behind him. The guy's weird, Arnie. The guy's really fucking weird, but Arnie wasn't there. He was sitting behind the wheel of the car. That same sappy expression was on his face. I went around to the front of the hood release. I pulled it, and the hood went up with a rusty scream that made me think of the sound effects you hear on some of those haunted house records. Flecks of metal sifted down. The battery was an old Allstate. The terminals were so glued with green corrosion that you couldn't tell which one was positive and which one was negative. I pulled the air cleaner and looked into a 4-barrel car as black as mine shaft. I lowered the hood and went back to where Arnie was sitting, running his hand along the edge of the dashboard over to the speedometer, which was calibrated up to an utterly absurd 120 miles per hour. Had cars really ever gone that fast? Arnie, I think the engine block's cracked. I really do. This car is lunch, my friend. It's just a total lunch. If you want wheels, we can find you something a lot better than this for $250. I mean it. A lot better. It's 20 years old, he said. Do you realize a car officially becomes an antique when it's 20 years old? Yeah, I said. The junkyard behind Darnell's is full of official antiques, you know what I mean? Dennis. The door banged. LeBay was coming back. It was just as well. Further discussion would have been meaningless. I may not be the world's most sensitive human being, but when the signals were strong enough, I can pick them up. This was something Arnie felt he had to have, and I wasn't going to talk him out of it. I didn't think anyone was going to talk him out of it. LeBay handed him the receipt with a flourish, written on a plain sheet of notepaper in an old man's spidery, slightly trembling script was, receipt from Arnold Cunningham, $25 as a 24-hour deposit on 1958 Plymouth Christine. And below that he had signed his name. What's this Christine? I asked, thinking I might have misread or he might have misspelled it. His lips tightened and his shoulders went up a little, as if he expected to be laughed at, or if he was daring me to laugh at him. Christine, he said. It's what I always called her. Christine, Arnie said. I like it. Don't you, Dennis? Now he was talking about naming the damn thing. It was all getting to be too much. What do you think, Dennis? Do you like it? No, I said. If you got to name an army, why don't you name it Trouble? He looked hurt at that, but I was beyond caring. I went back to my car and waited for him, wishing I had taken a different route home.